I'm gonna ask you some questions and just see if these brain cells are working. Okay. First question. Are you ready? Is how many 3-cent stamps are in a dozen? 4. Okay. Anyone else? There a dozen. Okay. Okay. That was just the warm up. Now the next question. They're gonna start getting harder. Okay. Okay. Dobbin the horse is tied to a 40-foot rope. Okay. Dobbin is tied to a 40-foot rope. There's a haystack 50 feet away from Dobbin. Dobbin is able to eat the hay, yet the rope doesn't break or stretch in any way. How is this possible? What it is the rope wasn't tied to Dobbin. There was a rope there, but it wasn't tied to him. Okay?
Oh, I'm doing just great.
Oh, here's now they're starting to get hard. Okay? A toad is at the bottom of a well, a 20-foot well with very slippery sides. Once an hour, he jumps up 3 feet and slips back 2 feet. At that rate, with no time off for sleep, how many hours will it take the toad to get out of the well? It's 18 hours. Oh, is that what he said? Okay, I didn't hear you, Lowell. 18 hours. Why? Because the last 3, he jumps the 3 feet to get out. He doesn't slide back because he's out. So it's only 18 hours. What role did Boris Karloff play in the most popular movie? And they will say Frankenstein. This is Boris Karloff, okay? In fact, the answer is incorrect. Why? Karloff played Frankenstein's monster, Frankenstein. Dr. Victor Frankenstein was the mad scientist who created him. It is freezing night, and you finally reach a mountain cabin that has been rented to you for the weekend. The electricity has been cut off or knocked out. There are no lights and no heat. Does that sound pretty close to what it is? There's a fireplace with a stack of wood in it, a wood-burning stove, an oil lamp, and a candle. You search your pockets and find that you have a single wooden match. You look at the resources you have available. What will you light first? Boy, you're good. You're good. Okay, Mike, are you coming?
Ready.
Okay. Here's a knock-knock joke especially for Mike. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Ooze. Say ooze.
Who's who?
Who's who? Okay. Who's in charge around here?
Oh.
Mike is.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. Welcome to the Sons of Utah Pioneer Mesa, Arizona chapter, second Thursday of the month gathering. I'm Michael O'Brien. I am our current president. We're grateful that you're here today. We're looking forward to a really good presentation tonight and a good meal like we usually have. Just a couple of things here for announcements. If you haven't gotten this month's trail marker, do you guys all get that emailed to you from the Sons of Utah Pioneer National Headquarters? In that is at the very end of it are what's going on in each chapter around the country. And we have a little blurb in there, and I'll be doing that each month, just letting them know what we're doing. Like next issue will be a little bit about this evening here and Cindy's presentation and the whole thing. So check that out, and then you can also see what other chapters are doing. If you guys ever look at that and come up with some ideas of what you'd like to do with us, with the gathering or treks or any other activities, let me know, let somebody on the board know, and we'll look to do some of the things other people are doing. That's what I read them for. What are other chapters doing? It's always interesting. Just a little report, we had a trek since we were here last. We went to the Mesa Historical Museum. Bill put that together. We had a great afternoon. It was February 18th on a Saturday. Got a chance to tour that and then go to lunch at a Rosa's Mexican restaurant. So we'll be doing those in the future as well. So when we'll let you know by email. Everybody's invited. It was, you had to pay to get in the museum and then for lunch. Until we get 100 or 200 people in here paying dues, but we can cover that for you. We'll be asking anybody who participates to pay their way, but it was a great opportunity to see something historical here and hang out as a group. So we appreciate that. And I also wanted to mention our new member, Matt Wharton, in the back. You might not recognize him. Last time you saw him, he looked like Santa Claus. But I think, he's our past president, and now that he's not, I think he misses the attention he used to get as president, so he cut his hair all off so we'd all say, "Oh, Matt, you look so young," and stuff.
I have my way of just tweaking every situation.
Oh, man, we're grateful to have Matthew here with us tonight.
So you all know I play the trumpet. Well, so does Cindy. She plays the trumpet. And we happen to sit next to each other in the City of Mesa band. And it's a really fun experience to play in that band because we play a lot of really patriotic pieces. And so Cindy and I get a share, and her and I sit right next to each other. So I've been able to get to know her well. She has known other members of my family through the years, and so we have a few things in common that we discovered along the way. And so Cindy's going to speak to us tonight about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. And so we're really pleased to hear from her. So let's hear a big hand for Cindy.
Thank you very much for having me. I need to start off by recognizing or letting you know that when I am going to give a presentation, I make sure I say a prayer. I say several prayers, actually. And this presentation I give the glory to God because it was Heavenly Father and His Spirit that gave me this presentation. So we're going to start off with a Constitution quiz. So don't get nervous. I do give the answer if you guys don't come up with it. But it's just true or false. Let me know if you can't hear me. If you can't, you get to move up. Can you hear me okay? All right. Okay. First question. The Constitution is a living, breathing document. True or false? Just yell it out. The answer is false. The Constitution guarantees to every state a Republican form of government. True or false? We just pledged the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the... Thank you very much. You hear all the time, we have a democracy. Save our democracy. No, we have a republic, and we'll talk about that. Number 3, the United States shall protect each state from invasion. True or false in the Constitution? True. Excellent. Is it happening? Are we being protected from invasions on the southern border? No. 4, Congress has unlimited powers. False. Thank you very much. 5, the President of the United States has unlimited powers. False. Yes. The President has the power to make laws. False. Thank you very much. The judicial branch has the power to make laws. Beautiful. The 3 branches of government are separate but equal. That is false. And I'll show you why.
Some are more powerful.
I'll be without the microphone for a while. Here is the Constitution at a glance. And you have, this is all in the Constitution for the legislative branch. Here is what's in the Constitution for the executive branch, and then your Article 3 is the judicial branch. The judicial branch was to be the very weakest branch of government. And things have been turned on their head. The judicial branch interprets the law. True or false? True. False. Thank you very much for the false. Yeah, they're not to interpret. That's the problem. They interpret it according to them. They are to apply the law and check for constitutionality. This is another problem with our judicial system or our judges. 10, the members of the U.S. Supreme Court serve for life. It's false. And we'll get into that a little bit later. The U.S. Supreme Court justices have said, Sandra Day O'Connor was one of them, you may remember her, that international law trumps the U.S. Constitution. True or false? False. That is absolutely false, yes. The United States Constitution takes supremacy over anything else outside the United States. The United States is a democracy. True or false? False. False. We are a what? Republic. Thank you. Now, our founding fathers organized the Constitution in 1787. I teach mainly 5th graders. I teach elementary school kids. I have a whole program for the elementary kids. And I was handing out pocket constitutions, like hopefully you all have a pocket constitution. And one little 5th grade boy in the front picked up his constitution and looked at it. He was beaming. He had a smile from ear to ear. And then he held this booklet to his heart and he said, "This is like the Bible." He hadn't even opened it up yet, but he felt something spiritual and grand about this, and it is. Now, the Constitution was inspired by God. The Bible was the #1 source used in coming up with the wording for the Constitution and the ideas. Now, back in the colonial days, in the 1700s, books were very rare and very expensive. If people back then had a book, they had a Bible. So when the founders organized the Constitution, they organized it patterned after the Bible. So with the Bible, we have the book, we have chapters, and we have verses. With our Constitution, the names are different, but it's still organized like that. The Constitution would be your book. Then within that book, you have articles, and then you have sections. This way, you're able to navigate through your Constitution as long as you know the 7 articles in there. You can find your answers that you need. The Constitution is our sacred birthright. You need to know your Constitution. So there are 10 parts to the Constitution. It starts out with a preamble. In the preamble, it gives the purpose of the Constitution, what's in it. Then there's the 7 articles, the Bill of Rights, which I like to call the Bill of Thou Shalt Nots, because in the Bill of Rights, it's not listing rights from our government. It is listing rights that we were born with, that God gave us, and it's telling the government, keep your hands off of these rights. So that's the first 10, the Bill of Rights, the first 10. Then the others, there's some good and bad, not necessarily given to us by God. So we're going to recite the preamble. Doesn't that sound fun? All right. So has anyone here memorized the preamble? It starts with "We the people." Okay, all right. It's going to come back to you. I have some hand motions, so I'd like you all to follow along with me and do the hand motions, and we're going to recite the preamble. Okay. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Awesome. Give yourselves a hand. That was terrific. Okay, so preamble. Then you have articles. Article 1, legislative branch. They make the laws. Article 2, executive branch, enforces the law. How's our president doing in enforcing some of our laws? Yeah, he gets an F. Anyway, did I say that out loud? Article 3, the judicial branch, applies the law. Article 4 has to do with the states. Article 5, that's the fix-it clause or the amending clause. Article 6 is the supremacy clause. In that clause, it states that this is the supreme law of the land. Article 7 is the ratification clause. We don't use that anymore. Ratification means acceptance. So the Constitution was accepted, and we are blessed with the Constitution. Then you have your Bill of Rights. I won't go through the Bill of Rights. A U.S. Senator, George Malone from Nevada, spoke before Congress and said, "I believe that if the people of this nation fully understood what Congress has done to them over the last 49 years, they would move on Washington. They would not wait for an election. It adds up to a preconceived plan to destroy the economic and social independence of the United States. Senator Malone served in Congress in 1957, over 66 years ago, and look where we are today, what Congress has done to us and this great country. We are in a spiritual battle like never before. This country has abandoned God. We are in a decline of biblical values. We have forgotten our Judeo-Christian roots. In his book, Battle for the American Mind, Pete Hegseth said, "We have evicted God from the classroom. Prayer and Bible reading has been banned from schools. They have been replaced with CRT and the indoctrination of radical progressive ideas. Therefore, I begin my speech with a declaration that needs to be announced loud and clear for all followers of Christ if our nation is to be saved. It is that the United States was founded as a Christian nation. We are still a Christian nation, and Jesus Christ is the God of this land." Now, the founding fathers were very religious. Even their clothing were religious. Their tricorn hats reminded them that this is Heavenly Father, the Savior, and the Holy Ghost. And they would put their hats on their head and do their duty to God.
I never knew that.
I portray Caesar Rodney from Delaware, who was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. Mr. Rodney is featured on the Delaware State Quarter. So if you've seen all of the state commemorative quarters, the quarter from Delaware, I've hidden it here because the kids we do a guessing game with the kids. But this is Caesar Rodney from Delaware. Most people think, who did you think this was? Paul Revere. Yeah, that's the number one guess. Paul Revere is from Massachusetts, and he didn't sign the Declaration of Independence. This is Caesar Rodney. So Caesar Rodney suffered from gout, asthma, and face cancer. Yet he gave his life in service to God and his country. Caesar Rodney served in the Second Continental Congress that considered separating from England. Mr. Rodney was in Delaware when he learned that his vote for independence was desperately needed. He left his home at midnight and rode 80 miles on his horse through a severe thunderstorm to reach Philadelphia in time to cast the deciding vote. The entire Congress was in suspense as they waited for Caesar Rodney to arrive. He made it to Philadelphia exhausted, drenched to the bone, splattered from head to toe with mud, but he made it in time to cast the final vote for independence. Now, I tell the story of Caesar Rodney and the birth of our country because we would not have needed a constitution without the establishment of the United States of America first. The Declaration of Independence is our covenant with God and revealed to the world that all men are created equal and blessed with inherent rights. Among those rights are the right to life, liberty, and property. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution are companion documents, not to be separated when making law. We are entitled to the laws of nature and of nature's God. Therefore, our lawmakers are to follow the Declaration and only make laws that are laws of God with the Bible and the Ten Commandments as their foundation and guide. The Constitution was written to protect our God-given rights. It was written to prevent tyranny, and was written to ensure a Republican form of government. The Constitution is a rule book for how our country is to operate and how our government is to be set up with a separation of powers, not a separation of church and state, but a separation of powers and powers that are clearly defined. Life is to be protected from conception to natural death. Thou shalt not kill is one of God's commandments. Neither the federal government nor the state governments have the power or authority to make law allowing for the murder of the unborn. Abortion is not a right. We have a natural right to defend ourselves. It is the right of the people to keep and bear arms. We have a natural right to the free exercise of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to peaceably assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The states are guaranteed that the federal government shall protect them from invasion. Now, the founders gave us a republic, not a democracy. James Madison said, democracies have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. John Adams said, remember, a democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. In a republic, the rule of law is followed, respected, and honored. And the rights and liberties of individuals are respected and honored. Now, we have three branches of government that are separate but are not equal according to the Constitution. The legislative branch was to be the most powerful branch and was given the sole power to make law. The executive branch has the power and obligation to execute the law, or to make sure the laws are carried out and followed. The executive branch does not have the power to make law. The judicial branch was designed to be the weakest branch of government. Their duty is not to interpret the law, but to apply the supreme law of the land and check for constitutionality. The judicial branch was not given power to make law. I'm stressing this because this is happening over and over and over again. They make law, and all of a sudden you and I have to obey, or we are jailed or fined or what have you. But this is our Constitution, that this is the way it's supposed to be, and we need to get back to that. The judicial branch was not given power to make law, has no power to legalize abortion, and has no power or authority to redefine marriage. Nowhere in the Constitution are the words, the members of the Supreme Court and inferior courts serve for life. Every audience is blown away by that. We were all taught, they serve for life. Look in your Constitution, it's not there. They hold their offices during good behavior. And that's also very key to keeping our republic and keeping us safe and with our liberties. Now, the founders did give us a free market system, which empowers the individual to be free to dream, free to choose, free to think, free to invent, free to create, free to own, buy, and sell, Free to fail. Yes, we should learn from our failures and become stronger and better. The government has no authority to bail out businesses that fail, yet they do with our tax money. We are free to explore, free to create wealth. Thus, we are blessed with the fruits of our labors. This is why the 16th Amendment to the Constitution is immoral and it's unconstitutional. The Lord, through the founders, never intended for us to be taxed on our income. Ezra Taft Benson, former Secretary of Agriculture under President Dwight D. Eisenhower, and church leader and prophet, staunchly defended the free enterprise system. He said, "We are a prosperous people because of a free enterprise founded on spiritual, not material values. It is founded on freedom of choice, an eternal God-given principle. The founders, inspired though they were, did not invent the priceless blessing of individual freedom. That gift to mankind sprang from God, the God of heaven, and not from government." Now, the government should not tax our income, have an education department, be over health care, have a national welfare program, redistribute wealth, have a housing department, have a Federal Reserve, which is not federal and there is no reserve, regulate U.S. industries, control lands, be over the environment, set price or wages. Did you know that Congress has no idea, Andy's trying to get to the bottom of this, trying to get a number, they have no idea how many federal agencies we have. They have no idea. Each federal agency is to be authorized by Congress, but there are over 1,200 federal agencies that are not authorized, yet they get funded year after year to the tune of about $500 billion each year, unauthorized. There should not be federal or regulatory agencies, sometimes referred to as the alphabet soup agencies, think IRS or CDC, with the power to control our lives. Unfortunately, Congress gave their legislative power to these agencies for them to create law or to have the rulemaking authority. Completely unconstitutional. These agencies were given the executive authority to ensure that we obeyed their laws, even though it didn't go through Congress, who has sole power to make law. They were also given, these agencies were given the judicial authority to punish individuals or fine them if we don't follow suit. This is the definition of tyranny. The very definition. These agencies have all of those powers against we the people. President Reagan said, "The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, 'I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.'" So, I have a picture of a hamburger. Doesn't this look delicious? What do you suppose the hamburger has to do with the Constitution? Unfortunately, our government has even attacked the American hamburger. So, students at the University of Colorado conducted a study to find out how many state and federal regulations there are on a hamburger. So this isn't one that you'd make at home. This is where you'd go to a store and buy a hamburger. So it's regulations on a hamburger in the store. They looked at everything from the ranchers, cattle grazers, meat processors, the farmers, flour mills, the restaurants, the lettuce growers, dairy farmers, cheese processors, mustard makers, the ketchup. The government came in and said, must be grade A fancy. It must flow no more than 9 centimeters in 30 seconds at 69 degrees Fahrenheit. The pickles, they attack the pickles. They get in there. The pickle slices must be between 1/8 and 3/8 inches thick and not too green in color. The bun must contain the right amount of thiamine, riboflavin, and at least 8 but not more than 12.5 milligrams of iron. The sesame seed bun, this is one of my favorites, must have, according to the government, or you will be fined, the correct number of sesame seeds on that sesame bun in order for you to legally call it a sesame seed bun. When we say our government is too large, this is what we mean. So this is one of the things I bring into the classrooms, and this is how God intended our country to be, where the individual, we the individual, have the most power, and the federal government has the smallest power, the least amount of power. But instead, here's how we are. This is where we are. The federal government has taken over all of our lives and taken over everything. So, guess how many federal and state regulations there are on the hamburger? You want to throw out a guess? 2088, okay. 10,000? 41,000 regulations. We are not a free people. When Andy was in the state legislature, business owners would come in and say, the taxes are bad, but we can pay the taxes. It's the regulations that are killing us. These regulations, we have laws to keep us safe, but then these are way beyond just keeping us safe. There was a construction owner. He came in and he said, I have a big problem with the government because when his earth movers were out, they were throwing dirt and dust up into the air, so he was fined for that. And they told him, your remedy is to get tanker trucks of water and water down all your property. So he did that. That's what the government told him to do, to keep the dust down. Then they started fining him for using too much water. We can't win. Here, this is a big problem. Our government is entirely too large. And this is the way to fix it, to get back to the Constitution. So this is just 41,000 regulations on a hamburger. That's just one item. Think of all the items that are here in our country. We cannot be a free and self-governing people that we were meant to be when we are being strangled by regulations in every aspect of our lives. We cannot be a free people with a tax burden which exceeds 50% of our income. We are not a free people when our national debt is over $32 trillion. And our president wants to add another $2 trillion to that national debt. Nor can we trust many of our leaders when they use our tax dollars so carelessly and unconstitutionally. Here are some examples. The Fed spent $30 million, your tax dollars. If you don't pay your taxes, you're going to jail or being fined. $30 million to help Pakistani farmers produce more mangoes. They spent $10 million to create a version of Sesame Street for kids in the Middle East. They spent $219,000 to teach college students how to watch television. Can you watch television really good? The Fed spent $1 million to film monkeys running on treadmills. The Fed spent over $2 million to pay nearly 100 employees not to work. They spent $300,000 to encourage Americans to eat caviar. The Fed spent close to $400,000 on Swedish massages. Not for humans. That would have been bad enough. It was for bunny rabbits. Our congressmen are doing this. Well, what they do is they appropriate money to these groups, and then these groups take our money and they do these kinds of things with it. Here's another one. The Fed spent over $500,000 to promote specialty hair and beauty products for cats and dogs. I kid you not. The omnibus bill that was just passed for this year, in place of a true budget, this one spends $1.7 trillion, which includes, you guys ready for this? $400 million to give to Egypt, Jordan, Tunisia, and Oman to enhance their border security, not ours. In fact, in that bill, it includes suing Governor Ducey, who was governor at the time that this was passed, and the state of Arizona to force the removal of the containers that were placed in the sections of our wide open border. And it specifically prohibits funding for our Customs and Border Patrol agents. $168 million was given to help aliens avoid deportation. $3.5 million for the Michelle Obama walking trail in the state of Georgia. You guys helped pay for that. $3 million for an LGBTQ plus museum in New York. $200 million for an equity gender program in Pakistan. $689,000 to study the romance between parrots. $3 million, you guys are pretty calm. When I'm teaching 5th and 6th graders, they are out of their chair, they are bonkers. And these are 5th and 6th graders going nuts over this, what Congress is doing to their parents with their money. Those kids are going to have to pay for this, maybe their kids. $3 million annually, so ridiculous, for a research project to watch hamsters on steroids fight each other. $2.3 million to the National Institutes of Health to inject beagle puppies with cocaine. $44.9 billion for Ukraine-related aid. They don't even know where it's going. $2.1 million to the NIH to encourage Ethiopians to wear shoes. I hope you're all appalled, absolutely appalled at what is going on with our tax dollars. This is not constitutional. It says right here in the Constitution what Congress is to spend money on. And I don't see anywhere that it gives authority to pay for massages for bunnies. So, Davy Crockett, known as the king of the wild frontier. You all know Davy Crockett was a soldier who fought and died at the Alamo. So I think you know where I'm going with this one. Davy Crockett, before becoming a soldier, he served as a member of Congress from Tennessee. In his first term in office, Davy Crockett voted for a bill that would take money from the public treasury and give it to a few citizens to rebuild their homes after a fire destroyed their homes. When Davy voted for that, and it passed, and money was given to them. Sounds nice. But when Davy was running for re-election, A constituent told Mr. Crockett that he voted for him the first time, but he won't vote for him again. And Davy Crockett was floored. Well, why not? He thought he did a good job in Congress. He said, because you voted yes on an unconstitutional bill. Davy Crockett said, oh, okay, tell me where it was. And he told him. At that moment, he said, I promise that I will honor and obey the Constitution, that I take an oath to do so. He won, Davy Crockett won his re-election and honored his promise. When a bill came up giving money to a widow of a naval officer, Davy Crockett gave a speech on the floor of the House and explained that Congress does not have the authority to give away the people's money in charity. That's for the churches to do, possibly the states, but not the federal government. And the bill was defeated thanks to Davy Crockett. We need more Davy Crockett's who will obey the oath they take in Congress to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and bear true faith and allegiance to the same. The sobering reality is that we are on a path to becoming a full socialist, or actually a communist country. Socialism can easily lead to communism. Here's the dangers of socialism and communism: oppression, cruel, unjust, or unequal treatment from authority. You see that today. Scarcity, starvation, restrictions on everything, restricted or no individual rights, preaches obedience to the state, little to no freedom, you're losing your freedoms, redistribution of wealth, government takeover of private businesses. You recognize that this is happening here in our country, in the United States of America. The government takeover of natural resources, government takeover of transportation, government takeover of education, churches, media, publications, government takeover of production, manufacturing, and distribution of goods and services, all unconstitutional, is taking away our freedoms. This is not good news. But I have good news. Tongue-in-cheek, actually. Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, came up with some advantages of socialism or communism. It makes everyone equal. That's good, right? Equally miserable, equally sad, equally depressed, equally hungry, equally poor.
We all understand each other.
We need heaven's help. I have handed out some freedom scriptures for you. Be sure and take one as you leave. We're not going to read all the freedom scriptures, but I've got freedom scriptures from the from the Doctrine and Covenants, from the Book of Mormon. There's an entire freedom theme in the Book of Mormon. In fact, my husband, Andy, wrote this book using only the Book of Mormon when he went to the state legislature and was serving with several LDS people who were not voting according to freedom. And so he realized they don't understand their own Book of Mormon. So he wrote this book, and I have some here. When I give presentations, they're discounted to $5 a piece if you're interested. So we'll start with the Book of Mormon. It was written for our day. It was written as a voice of warning. The prophet of old saw our day. They knew we would be in danger of losing our freedoms, and they were right. President Benson said, freedom is the underlying theme of the Book of Mormon. In the April 2021 General Conference, President Dallin H. Oaks said in his talk titled Defending Our Divinely Inspired Constitution, our belief in divine inspiration gives Latter-day Saints a unique responsibility to uphold and defend the United States of the Constitution. In Doctrine and Covenants 98, and that law of the land, which is constitutional, supporting that principle of freedom in maintaining rights and privileges, belongs to all mankind and is justifiable before me. Therefore, I, the Lord, justify you and your brethren of my church in befriending that law, which is constitutional. We cannot befriend something we don't know. We need to read our Constitution. We need to know it. We need to understand it and understand what the Lord would have us do. Doctrine and Covenants 101, 77, and 80. According to the laws of the Constitution of the people, which I have suffered to be established and should be maintained for the rights and protection of all flesh according to just and holy principles. For this purpose, I have established the Constitution of this land by the hands of wise men who I raised up unto this very purpose, and redeemed the land by the shedding of blood. Brothers and sisters, we need heaven's help. If we want God to bless us and to bless the United States of America, we need to be worthy of his blessings. We need to be a good, moral, and religious people. We need to be honest, virtuous, and full of integrity. We need to be self-reliant. We need to respect property and obey laws. We need to return to our founding principles. We need to understand, honor, and defend our founding documents. We must return to biblical principles. In Ephesians chapter 6, we are told we need to put on the whole armor of God. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take upon you the whole armor of God. Put on the breastplate of righteousness, your feet shod with peace, taking the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit. In 2 Chronicles 7:14, God said, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. I thank you.